Hello and welcome to The Essential Reads. My name is Isaac, and my goal is to bring to you a bunch of classic audiobooks in an easy and accessible way. We are continuing with North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, and this is Chapter 29. A Ray of Sunshine. Some wishes crossed my mind and dimly cheered it, and one or two poor melancholy pleasures, each in the pale, unwarming light of hope, silvering its flimsy wing, flew silent by. Moths in the moonbeam. Coleridge. The next morning brought Margaret a letter from Edith. It was affectionate and inconsistent, like the writer. But the affection was charming to Margaret's own affectionate nature, and she had grown up with the inconsequence, so she did not perceive it. It was as follows.
Oh, Margaret, it is worth a journey from England to see my boy. He is a superb little fellow, especially in his caps, and most especially in the one you sent him, you good, dainty-fingered, persevering little lady. Having made all the mothers here envious, I wanted to show him to somebody new, and hear a fresh set of admiring expressions. Perhaps that's all the reason. Perhaps it's not. Nay, possibly there is just a little cousinly love mixed with it. But I do want you so much to come here, Margaret. I am sure it would be the best thing for Aunt Hale's health. Everybody here is young and well, and our skies are always blue, and our sun always shines. And the band plays deliciously from morning till night. And to come back to the burden of my ditty, my baby always smiles. I'm constantly wanting you to draw him for me, Margaret. That very thing is prettiest, gracefulest, best. I think I love him a great deal better than my husband, who is getting stout and grumpy, what he calls busy. No, he is not. He has just come in with news of such a charming picnic given by the officers of the Hussard, at anchor in the bay below. Because he has brought in such a pleasant piece of news, I retract all I said just now. Did not somebody burn his hand for having said or done something he was sorry for? Well, I can't burn mine, because it would hurt me, and the scar would be ugly. But I'll retract all I said as fast as I can. Cosmo is quite as great a darling as baby, and not a bit stout, and as ungrumpy as ever husband was. Only, sometimes, he is very, very busy. I may say that without love. Wifely duty. Where was I? I had something very particular to say, I know, once. Oh, it is this! Dearest Margaret, you must come and see me. It would do Aunt Hale good, as I said before. Get the doctors to order it for her. Tell him that it's the smoke of Milton that does her harm. I have no doubt that it is that, really. 3 months, you must not come for less, of this delicious climate, all sunshine, and grapes as common as blackberries, would quite cure her. I don't ask my uncle. Here the letter became more constrained and better written. Mr. Hale was in the corner, like a naughty child, for having given up his living. Because, I dare say, he disapproves of war, soldiers, and bands of music. At least, I know that many dissenters are members of the Peace Society, and I'm afraid he would not like to come. But if he would, dear, pray say that Cosmo and I will do our best to make him happy. And I'll hide up Cosmo's red coat and sword, and make the band play all sorts of grave, solemn things. Or, if they do play pomps and vanties, it shall be in double slow time. Dear Margaret, if he would like to accompany you and Aunt Hale, we will try and make it pleasant, though I'm rather afraid of anyone who has done anything for conscience' sake. You never did, I hope. Tell Aunt Hale not to bring any warm clothes, though I'm afraid it will be late in the year before you can come. But you have no idea of the heat here. I tried to wear my great beauty Indian shawl at a picnic. I kept myself up with proverbs as long as I could. Pride must abide, and such whole pieces of pith. But it was no use. I was like Mamma's little dog Tiny, with an elephant's trapping on, smothered, hidden, killed with my finery. So I made it into a capital carpet for us all to sit down upon. Here's the boy of mine, Margaret. If you don't pack up your things as soon as you get this letter and come straight off to see him, I shall think you're descended from King Herod.
Margaret did long for a day of Edith's life. Her freedom from care, her cheerful home, her sunny skies. If a wish could have transported her, she would have gone off, just for one day. She yearned for the strength which such a change would give. Even for a few hours to be in the midst of that bright life, and to feel young again, not yet 20. And she had to bear up against such hard pressure that she felt quite old. That was her first feeling after reading Edith's letter. Then she read it again, and forgetting herself, was amused at its likeness to Edith's self, and was laughing merrily over it when Mrs. Hale came into the drawing-room, leaning on Dixon's arm. Margaret flew to adjust the pillows. Her mother seemed more than usually feeble.
"What were you laughing at, Margaret?"
asked she, as soon as she had recovered from the exertion of settling herself on the sofa.
"A letter I've had this morning from Edith. Shall I read it to you, Mamma?"
She read it aloud, and for a time it seemed to interest her mother, who kept wondering what name Edith had given to her boy, and suggesting all probable names, and all possible reasons why each and all of these names should be given. Into the very midst of these wonders, Mr. Thornton came, bringing another offering of fruit for Mrs. Hale. He could not, say rather, he would not, deny himself the chance of the pleasure of seeing Margaret. He had no end in this but the present gratification. It was the sturdy willfulness of a man usually most reasonable and self-controlled. He entered the room, taking in at a glance the fact of Margaret's presence. But after the first, cold, distant bow, he never seemed to let his eye fall on her again. He only stayed to present his peaches, to speak some gentle, kindly words, and then his cold, offended eyes met Margaret's with a grave farewell when he left the room. She sat down, silent and pale.
"Do you know, Margaret, I really begin to like Mr. Thornton."
No answer at first. Then Margaret forced out an icy, "Do you?"
"Yes, I think he is really getting quite polished in his manners."
Margaret's voice was rather more in order now. She replied,
"He is very kind and attentive, there is no doubt of that." "I wonder Mrs. Thornton never calls. She must know how I am ill because of the waterbed." "I dare say she hears how you are from her son." "Still, I should like to see her. You have so few friends here, Margaret."
Margaret felt what was in her mother's thoughts. A tender craving to bespeak the kindness of some woman towards the daughter that might soon be left motherless. But she could not speak.
"Do you think," said Mrs. Hale after a pause, "that you could go and ask Mrs. Thornton to come and see me? Only once. I don't want to be troublesome." "I will do anything if you wish it, Mamma. But when Frederick comes—" "To be sure. We must keep our doors shut. We must let no one in. I hardly know whether I dare wish him to come or not. Sometimes I think I would rather not. Sometimes I have such frightful dreams about him." "Oh, Mamma, we'll take good care. I will put my arm in the bolt sooner than he should come to the slightest harm. Trust the care of him to me, Mamma. I will watch over him like a lioness over her young." "When can we hear from him?" "Not for a week yet, certainly. Perhaps more. We must send Martha away in good time. It would never do to have her here when he comes, and then send her off in a hurry. Dixon is sure to remind us of that. I was thinking that, if we wanted any help in the house while he is here, we could perhaps get Mary Higgins. She is very slack of work, and is a good girl, and would take pains to do her best, I'm sure, and would sleep at home, and never need come upstairs, so as to know who is in the house." "As you please. As Dixon pleases. But, Margaret, don't get used to these horrid Milton words." Slack of work is a provincialism. What will your Aunt Shaw say if she hears you use it on her return? Oh, Mamma, don't try and make a bedbug of Aunt Shaw, said Margaret, laughing. Edith picked up all sorts of military slang from Captain Lennox, and Aunt Shaw never took any notice of it. But yours is factory slang. And I live in a factory town. And if I live in a factory town, I must speak factory language when I want it. Why, Mamma, I could astonish you with a great many words you never heard in your life. I don't believe you know what a knobstick is. Not I, child. I only know it has a very vulgar sound, and I don't want to hear you using it. Very well, dearest mother. I won't. Only I shall have to use a whole explanatory sentence instead. I don't like this, Milton, said Mrs. Hale. Edith is right enough in saying it's the smoke that has made me so ill.
Margaret started up as her mother said this. Her father had just entered the room, and she was most anxious that the faint impression she had seen on his mind that the Milton air had injured her mother's health should not be deepened, should not receive any confirmation. She could not tell whether he had heard what Mrs. Hale had said or not, but she began speaking hurriedly of other things, unaware that Mr. Thornton was following him.
Mamma is accusing me of having picked up a great deal of vulgarity since we came to Milton.
The vulgarity Margaret spoke of referred purely to the use of local words, and the expression arose out of the conversation they had just been holding. But Mr. Thornton's brow darkened, and Margaret suddenly felt how her speech might be misunderstood by him. So, in the natural sweet desire to avoid giving unnecessary pain, she forced herself to go forward with a little greeting, and continue what she was saying, addressing herself to him expressly.
Now, Mr. Thornton, though knobstick has not a very pretty sound, is it not expressive? Could I do without it in speaking of the thing it represents? If using local words is vulgar, I was very vulgar in the forest, was I not, Mamma?
It was unusual with Margaret to obtrude her own subject of conversation on others. But, in this case, she was so anxious to prevent Mr. Thornton from feeling annoyance at the words he had accidentally overheard, that it was not until she had done speaking that she coloured all over with consciousness, more especially as Mr. Thornton seemed hardly to understand the exact gist or bearing of what she was saying, but passed her by, with a cold reserve of ceremonious movement, to speak to Mrs. Hale. The sight of him reminded her of the wish to see his mother, and commend Margaret to her care. Margaret, sitting in burning silence, vexed and ashamed of her difficulty in keeping her right place, and her calm unconsciousness of heart, when Mr. Thornton was by, heard her mother's slow entreaty that Mrs. Thornton would come and see her. See her soon. Tomorrow, if it were possible. Mr. Thornton promised that she should, conversed a little, and then took his leave. And Margaret's movements and voice seemed at once released from some invisible chains. He never looked at her, and yet the careful avoidance of his eyes betokened that in some way he knew exactly where, if they fell by chance, they would rest on. If she spoke, he gave no sign of attention, and yet his next speech to anyone else was modified by what she had said. Sometimes there was an express answer to what she had remarked, but given to another person, as though unsuggested by her. It was not the bad manners of ignorance, it was the wilful bad manners arising from deep offence. It was wilful at the time, repented of afterwards. But no deep plan, no careful cunning could have stood him in such good stead. Margaret thought about him more than she had ever done before, not with any tinge of what is called love, but with regret that she had wounded him so deeply, and with a gentle, patient striving to return to their former position of antagonistic friendship. For a friend's position was what she found that he had held in her regard, as well as in that of the rest of the family. There was a pretty humility in her behaviour to him, as if mutually apologizing for the overstrong words which were the reaction from the deeds of the day of the riot. But he resented those words bitterly. They rung in his ears, and he was proud of the sense of justice which made him go in every kindness he could offer to her parents. He exulted in the power he showed in compelling himself to face her, whenever he could think of any action which might give her father or mother pleasure. He thought that he disliked seeing one who had mortified him so keenly. But he was mistaken. It was a stinging pleasure to be in the room with her and feel her presence. But he was no great analyzer of his own motives, and was mistaken, as I have said. Thank you so very much for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, share, all that jazz, and if you really enjoyed it, do subscribe, because there is more to come. If you're listening on podcast, please leave a review, as it's the easiest way to get this in front of as many people as possible, and reading your reviews really, really makes my day. If you want to support the show further, there is a Ko-Fi link just here on screen. It's like a direct way to donate towards the show. You can find a link to that in the description box, or you can do direct donations here on YouTube. It's a great way to support smaller creators like myself. But the best thing that you could do for me currently would just be to listen on Spotify while you're asleep. While you're awake, still listen on YouTube, because I currently only get paid there. But if you listen on Spotify or podcast platform of choice while asleep, I can hopefully unblock monetization options there.